We need to try to eliminate all the mistakes we made. All of us. Yep. We just collectively made too many mistakes and, gave up some big plays. And
you had an opening.
We made a mistake on, play didn't work. Had a mistake on play. Have to eliminate those mistakes and we just gave up some critical big plays. So we need to eliminate those. It's obviously a mistake on that play too. Okay.
Is that rare, double knock when he walks away, Phil?
I don't know, but it reminds me of
Gruden used
Kevin
to, and also
Spacey in that House of Cards show. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like things are coming to an end. Is this a breaking point, Phil, for Bill Belichick? Like, Tom Brady looks miserable on the field, and I feel like Bill Belichick looks miserable on the field. Like nobody's enjoying what's going on right now.
I think that's probably fair. I don't know if it's if there's a breaking point. I think the way they're going to try to manage these next few weeks is, hey, we're not dead. Like I had players asking me in the locker room last night, did the Jets lose? Which is, sort of a commentary on the state of affairs here in Foxborough. But knowing that they lost, knowing that they are still technically alive, they're going to approach this week like they try to approach many others. And this is why it's important to have guys like Devin McCourty and Matthew Slater and David Andrews, because those are the guys that are going to try to keep this thing on the rails, even though it looked the way it did yesterday.
By breaking point, do we mean, is it a breaking point where Bill says no more BS, or a breaking point for Bill where, okay, we have to have exit strategies from the greatest coach of all time?
I think the latter.
Okay. I don't think it is a breaking point. From conversations that I've had in the recent past, I think they're letting the season play out. And when the season does play out, there'll be conversations. But right now, unless things go completely wacky, is what I was told, is they would not, there wouldn't be any great urgency to move on. Now, whatever happens in those conversations and whether yesterday qualifies as wacky enough and what the next 3 weeks do, hopefully yesterday was rock bottom. If it wasn't, then I think conversations could be even more intriguing, and the changes that will be demanded might be even more drastic than Bill's prepared for. But I really don't think that there's a firing in the offing. I really don't think.
A firing of Bill Belichick.
Right. Yeah, I mean, look.
Because the way I see it, and
essence.
tell me if I'm wrong, but the way I see it playing out is Robert Kraft says, hey, you know what? I let you do your little thing where you bring in your buddies and you let them run the offense, and it's been an abject disaster. And now we've lost a year with our first-round draft quarterback. You got to bring in a real offensive coordinator. We need to get this thing back on track. So do it. Do whatever you need to hide them away somewhere, but they cannot run the offense.
Yeah,
anymore.
my guess.
And that's where the change happens next year.
Sure.
And then maybe the breaking point is, do they get a real offensive coordinator in and they're still making mistakes and things don't look right? Is that the breaking point?
My guess is he doesn't even get that sentence out. I don't think the Robert Kraft even gets that sentence out before Bill has already said, here's the antidote, here's what we're going to do going forward, and this is what we're going to have. I know the Patriots believe to an extent that Bill is too much walled off and on his own. His counsel that he had with Nick Caserio for a long time, with Ernie Adams for a long time, maybe even with Dante Scarnecchia for a long time, with McDaniels, it's not there, so he is more and more cloistered, and as a result, he's not getting novel ideas. So they're going to want him to open up his world, I think, as he promised to do for Josh McDaniels. I imagine that Bill will do that, but he is, I'm sure, seething, Phil, right now at the way the players have, the way yesterday went.
Well, and think about all of those names that you just mentioned that have moved on, and think about the guy who really, I think, has, in some ways, tried to fill all of their shoes. It's Matt Patricia.
One guy.
Really? Like that's who it is. And given the way things have gone, though, I would say that even Bill Belichick, knowing his willingness to adapt and his understanding of the necessity of adaptation in this league, that even he would say, not that he would necessarily fire Matt Patricia, but he would say, we like continuity, but if we're not on the right path, what's the point of continuity? And so I think he would look at himself and he'd look at the rest of his staff and understand that changes would need to be made before it came down to some sort of ultimatum.
You would hope.
We talked about, the notion that, hey, will he try and re-up and run it back with Matt because they are far down the road, and why start over again? I think what has happened the last 2 weeks would eliminate the possibility of that.
But I also think that you have to take into consideration that your players are not responding to them. And if anything, they're acting out. And it's causing division and friction where you've got the two sides sort of jabbing at one another, which You can't have a winning football team. If you're not working together and you're working against each other, that just does not work.
Can't have factions.
Cannot have fractions. Offensive touchdowns, by the way, speaking of things that have been hard to come by this season. Yesterday, it looked like Mac Jones had hit Jacoby Myers for a 1-yard TD earlier in the second quarter, but the coaching staff called the timeout. Well, Bill called the timeout before the snap. Belichick was asked what he saw that led him to call that timeout. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, we didn't really have the play right.
Is that a situation where I think you've talked in the past where it looked like he scored a touchdown on it, that maybe it was the result didn't match necessarily the play?
Yeah, well, the whistle blew before the play was run, so.
Okay.
We didn't have the play right, so I took a timeout because we didn't have it right.
Curran, you Zapruder filmed this.
Yeah.
Did the whistle blow?
The whistle did not blow before the play was run, and no players reacted that way. The ball was settling into Jacoby Myers' hands when the whistle did blow. The announcers, who would hear any whistle, didn't react that way. The ball is here. That's when the whistle blew.
Oh, yeah, you can hear it. It's actually plain as day. You can hear it. Even in my little thing that I put in my ear, you can hear it as the ball is in the air. You can hear the whistle blow.
So Bill, I would presume, knows that the whistle didn't blow because he was urgently trying to signal for the timeout. He knew that he called the timeout late, and he knew the whistle didn't blow, and the play went through. I think he's trying to save face a little bit on a play that.
Yeah, Phil, what did he see that he didn't like?
Yeah, I would love to know. I have no idea because it's so rare that we see one of these red zone plays work, that the fact that he saw something that he didn't like in that moment surprises me. It might have been the fact that Hunter Henry was dealing with an eye injury, and so maybe there was a personnel situation, or Jonnu Smith was in a place that Bill Belichick didn't love, or he was about to run a route that they didn't feel comfortable. I don't know. But that was really the one variable to me where you had a key red zone player who was out in that moment who might have changed the look for Bill Belichick.
Can you run that one more time, folks? Look at the line of scrimmage and see if that changes at all. It might be impossible to do. I'm sorry if I'm asking for this. Okay.
The line of scrimmage?
Yeah, watch the line. Do they? There's a linebacker or two that kind of just stands there. Maybe they saw Belichick. I don't know. But seriously, when you watch and listen to it on the TV replay, the whistle does not blow.
No, you hear it when the ball is in the air going towards Jacoby Myers.
So I just don't understand.
Have you factored in how fast sound travels?
Well,
Yes.
I was here in Needham.
Do those calculations?
And they were in Las Vegas.
Maybe it was a satellite delay. Time now for a Chevrolet Sportsnet Central update. Before the crazy lateral play that ended the game, the Raiders tied the game against the Patriots. A 30-yard touchdown pass from quarterback Derek Carr to receiver Keelan Cole. Replay evidence seemed to suggest that Cole's second foot landed on the white stripe along the edge of the end zone. The NFL's replay review protocol, however, found otherwise. Take a look now, carrying the load, presented by the Chevy Silverado. After the game, NFL Senior VP of Officiating Walt Anderson said, quote, "We looked at every available angle, and it was not clear and obvious that the foot was on the white. It was very tight, very close. There was no shot that we could see. We even enhanced and blew up the views that we had. There was nothing that was clear and obvious that his foot was touching the white." Tom Giles rejoins the conversation. Giles, the one thing that I kept thinking when this play was being reviewed was, and they showed it a number of times on the Fox broadcast, it was the black chalk that came up instead of the white chalk, which sort of signified that maybe his foot was in bounds. And I was like, that is going to be the one thing that keeps this from getting turned over.
All I kept thinking was, where's the other camera angle? Is this all we got? We got two angles?
No, and you get
maybe
flexed.
Three? Yeah, that's it. That's it, Trenni. When you get flexed out of Sunday Night Football and you're all of a sudden the 405 Fox game and you know, they didn't know you're going to have the Patriots until a couple weeks ago. Maybe that had something to do with it. As I was watching it, I mean, seriously, you're looking at like a pixelated, zoomed in, kind of blurry image, and I thought, it looks like his foot's out. But I also think that they're probably going to stick with the call that was on the field. Like if they said he was incomplete to begin with, then it stays incomplete. That's just kind of what you're dealing with. I know a lot of people are upset about this today. That was also second down. You know, I mean, so the Raiders get the ball back. It's third down with 30 seconds to go. I mean,
and they're in fourth down territory at that point, so they had two more downs.
Yeah, I can't be like too upset. I can't decide that the Patriots lost this game just because of this call.
Clear and obvious is clear and obvious is clear and obvious, and none of that happened. It was not clear nor obvious. And if we're talking about pellets, you're right. There were some pellets, but pellets don't constitute clear and obvious to me. That's like evidence that you're going to try and be
Right, like Giles just said, they wouldn't have, if they had called it incomplete or out of bounds, they
And
wouldn't
that's
have
what Walt Anderson said,
they
yes.
wouldn't have turned it over.
Yeah, he said
either.
that after the game. He said if it had been ruled incomplete in real time, we would have had to keep it that way
Yeah.
because there just wasn't enough evidence. Now, this is a situation where Bill Belichick might look at it, Tom, and say, what? We need to get a bake sale for the NFL so we've got enough cameras. So
car wash.
We're making a lot of money here, you know.
Would-
That's what he's talking about
would you
when he says things like that. That's what he's talking about is why not have enough camera angles to be able to determine a game-changing play, which
Well, Bill, when your
I
team's
get.
not very good, you don't get the games that have
He
all the
wants
camera
to make
angles.
them universal, and I don't
blame him. No,
but I
I
think he
don't.
was talking goal line then. Now we have to have them everywhere. I mean, it's complex. Go ahead. Sorry, buddy.
No, I don't honestly. Phil, would it have even changed things all that much? Like let's say that was incomplete, and to Giles' point, they still had 2 downs to try and score, and the defense was just gassed at that point. Kenny Albert and who was the analyst on the game?
Jonathan Vilma.
Thank you, Jonathan Vilma. Were talking about how out of breath the corners were. Like it just and even if they don't score, like, do you feel any better about the Patriots after that game? Like, to me, people are focusing on that because you want to focus on the fact that maybe they still had a chance and they were robbed.
I do think you could have won that game because that touchdown.
Sure, you could have won it, but would it change
that
how you
required
feel about the team?
Perfect throw. Perfect. That was an absolute dime from Derek Carr, and he was not full of those in the second half of
he
that
had like
game.
3 of
The
those
Patriots
the entire
defense was destroying them, was picking them apart in the second half. So if that had gone incomplete, I could foresee the Patriots winning the game. To answer your question, bigger picture, you'd still feel horrible about the Patriots offense, which is why before the game, Tom, I said style points kind of matter in this one. That's a bad defense, and if you want to do anything in these last 3 weeks of the season, you have to show that you can be a competent NFL offense, and they really didn't show that yesterday.
There's so many different kinds of fans, and I look at the 10-year-old out there who just wants to see his team win. So for that kid, yeah, you feel like you got jobbed. You want to win every game, even if, you know, the new broom sweeps clean, everything else that we talk about, that you don't want false wins that give you a false sense of hope and security about this team. But I think about the little kid going, hey, he's out. Why is it not out, Giles?
Was that your 10-year-old impression?
That was,
Yeah, that was
I don't know.
Or 10-year-old.
interesting.
I mean,
Again, it's the camera angles. It's
caught him
you're dealing with what you get. Yeah, what was that? You're just
I think a lot of
do
offended 10-year-olds
impression
out
and
there
just-
right now.
Nah, there's a lot of 10-year-olds.
me.
They're much more
talking about
mature.
the
They're
kid
much more
inside
mature
everybody.
than that these
I mean,
days.
hey, listen, we want to talk about 10-year-olds. You know, the text I got from my husband after that game last night was, "You can eat without me. I need some time alone."
How young is your husband?
He's 46.
Oh.
Couldn't handle it. He was so, and he knows they're going nowhere, but he was so mad about how that game ended.
People get
yesterday.
invested.
People are very
they want
invested.
wins regardless of what happens.
I ate
So
a-
we look at pragmatically, well, what happens if
I
they
ate
lose
alone
this
last
game?
night.
Maybe it's easier for fans who are our audience. They want wins regardless.
Well, they didn't get it. Thanks a lot, Patriots. I ate
They
alone
didn't
last
get
night.
it.